What's up, everybody? This is Dave Jackson, and you're listening to Tales from the Backlog, a video games podcast where we talk about the games we play. I am joined today once again by a friend of the show returning for, I lost count, this is like your 700th or 800th guest appearance at this point, right?
Oh, geez, like maybe 4.
Yeah, that might be more reasonable. Jake Anderson's back. Hey, Jake.
Hello.
And today we're going to be taking a break from the backlog to tier rank the Dark Souls 3 bosses. Last week you heard the full Dark Souls 3 episode with Adam. This week we're going to talk about the bosses in particular, just like we did for Bloodborne and Dark Souls 1, and continuing this trend for every other From Software game into the future. So before we get into the tier list, a couple things. Number one, you can look down in the show notes and you will find the link to the exact tier list that Jake and I are doing here. If you want to make your own tier list, feel free to do that and share it with us. And a great place to share it is in the Tales from the Backlog Discord server, which is live. It actually has been live for a long time now by the time you hear this, but I am only now recording episodes with a live Discord server. So that's what happens when you record episodes way before release date. So Discord server is live. You'll also find a link down in the show notes. Please come join us, talk about the Dark Souls 3 bosses. Are there any that make you want to break your controller in half? There's a couple for me, and we'll see. So before we get started with the tier list, the other thing is, Jake, I gave my history with Dark Souls 3 on the main episode, and I know that you're a big fan of the From Software games. Like, well, I wouldn't have asked you to be on here if I knew you didn't play Dark Souls 3 or something. But for everyone listening, Jake was a guest on the Bloodborne episode talking about our love of From Software. So what about Dark Souls 3? Can you remember what made you first want to play Dark Souls 3? And how many times have you played it? Stuff like that?
For sure, yeah. I gave maybe a tiny bit of my overall From history on the Bloodborne episode. But people might not listen to every episode. So I was aware of the games. I bounced off Dark Souls 1, bounced off Dark Souls 2, and kind of thought they just weren't for me. Mm-hmm. But then eventually, the sound of Bloodborne sounded really cool to me, and decided to give it a try after playing Nioh, because Nioh started to click with me, and I was like, okay, I'm kind of getting this very difficult, action RPG type style game. So maybe I should dip into the people that are considered the best at that, since they invented the genre, basically. And Bloodborne sounded really cool, and it was supposed to be a little faster, and that's one of the things that I liked about Nioh, was a little faster. For some reason, it just jived with me better. So I went into Bloodborne, and I was absolutely loving it, and then Dark Souls 3 came out around that time. And so I was like, I'm going to pick that up too. And I played through and beat Bloodborne. I got pretty far into Dark Souls 3 and then stopped for a number of years. And then it was just last year or the year before, went back to it, finished it, platinumed it. So it's the only From game that I've platinumed so far, although I guarantee you Elden Ring will be one.
Yeah.
Which I just beat last night.
Attaboy.
109 hours, I think, my first playthrough.
Yeah.
But anyways, I got the platinum on Dark Souls 3. I've beaten it a few times. My main character is on NG plus 4, and then I have a couple other characters I've played pretty far into. I've also spent a lot of time and beaten it multiple times on PC now with things like the Cinders mod and stuff like that.
Oh, right. Yeah, I always forget that there are a bunch of mods on PC that people say are really good. Yeah,
Cinders is awesome if you just want. Honestly, I would almost compare it to Elden Ring as far as just it opens up the variety of playstyles you can do. There's a lot more viable options, and so it just makes it really fun to go mess around. But the reason I've played Dark Souls 3 so much is I know a lot of people don't like it as much as the others. based on story and lore, which I get, but the way it feels to play in my hands is really nice. It feels very good to play, but I understand when people don't like it as much because of a few things like poise and lack of variety in builds and things like that.
Yeah, that's basically like, I know that at this time when you're recording it, you haven't had a chance to listen to me and Adam talk about it from the main episode, but that was basically our conclusion too, is like a lot of the story and the fan service stuff is very lame, but the gameplay, very, very fun. Like this is a very fun game to play. And if you're like me and you don't really like pay attention to story much in Souls games when you play, like you just kind of vibe with it, it's really, really good. And part of that gameplay is talking about the bosses. So in the main episode, Adam and I did our top 3 bosses. In this one, Jake and I are going to go through basically like the game order. So starting with the very first boss, and then we're going to finish with the Soul of Cinder, which is the last boss. And Dark Souls 3 has, let me count, like on Sesame Street, let's count. 1, 2, no, there are,
I just quickly counted 25 off my tier list, I think.
25 bosses. Very good.
I'd be interested in hearing what your top 3 were before we get going.
Yeah, so let me think. My top 3 were Wolnir. Wolnir was in my top 3. Not for any mechanical reason. He's just one of the best skeletons ever, and I love a good skeleton.
Yep.
Lothric and Lorien, I think, were in my top 3. That's a very fun fight. I really enjoyed that. And Gael. Gael's in my top 3.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but we'll see. I have not done this tier list ahead of time, so those 3 are not like locks to be up in the S rank. We'll see. I kind of modified my tier list as far as the ranks go. I have rankings S, A, B, C, D, and instead of F, I have the Bed of Chaos tier, which is a special place in hell for the worst of the worst.
I don't think I ended up with any lower than D.
Yeah, I don't think. Oh, there's one that I really fucking hate, but do I hate it as much as the Bed of Chaos? Let's find out. So we're going to get started with our tier lists after the break. Okay, so starting at the beginning of the game, the first boss we're going to talk about is Iudex Gundyr, and I think that's how you pronounce that. And if it's not, that's how I'm going to pronounce it. So Iudex Gundyr is the first one, the tutorial boss in Dark Souls 3. Jake, where do you have this dude?
I have him at B.
Okay.
He's a very tough tutorial boss as far as those go. He is real tough. But I overall like, it's kind of cool. You pull the sword out and then, oh crap, he's waking up. He's big and intimidating. I really don't like when he goes all Pus of Man. It's just too hard to read. And I'm just like, okay. Because honestly, I like him decently. If he didn't have that part, he might be an A. Maybe he might still be B. But that's definitely the main thing preventing him from being any higher.
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with you and put him in B tier. I really like the boss, especially the first phase. There's a couple things that keep it down. Like when I did Dark Souls 1 bosses, I put the Asylum Demon in A tier because I think that's a very good tutorial boss for Dark Souls 1. I think this dude's too hard for a tutorial boss. Like, I can just imagine like a significant percent of like players who've never played a Souls game before play Dark Souls 3, and this dude's hard for me, and I have hundreds of hours in these games. Like,
and you can't summon at this point yet, so you're SOL.
Yep, it's from saying get good, which I disagree with as a concept. And yeah, that second phase kind of sucks. So Iodex Gundar B, like I really do like the first phase. The second one is just automatic. Like I think you pick up some fire bombs right before that fight, so it's just an automatic throw those fire bombs and stay away from him.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
Absolutely.
Not very fun. Next up, go through the high wall of Lothric, and the next boss is Vort of the Boreal Valley. Where do you have Vort?
I also have him at B as well.
Okay.
He's a fun fight. I really like the idea of, it's a knight, but he's crawling. Like, it's a cool little play on that normal guy in armor thing.
You fought guys in armor. What if he was walking on all fours? How
right?
about that?
And had ice.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like him. I just didn't think there was anything that made him really stand out. I think he would have been a better tutorial boss. And as a tutorial boss, I may have ranked him higher. But as the boss here, I'm kind of like, he's good, but he's not like really cool to me.
Yeah, I have Vort in C tier, and it's mostly because like I've played Dark Souls 3 twice now, and the second time, like the time I replayed it getting ready for Elden Ring, I forgot Vort was there until I like came down the steps and I was like, oh right, I have to fight Vort. I don't really like that fight very much. It's not very fun. I guess it's like Champion Gund, if we want to, because I think we talked about this in Bloodborne, where it's like Cleric Beast is the tutorial for big beast enemies, and Gascoigne is the tutorial for like dudes, basically, hunter fights. And Vort is your tutorial for big dudes that are way bigger than you, like animal type, beast type stuff, where you gotta, the strategy is like get under them and smack their crotch or their butthole or something.
I mean, that's what you do with everybody, and there's a lot of groin play going on in Souls games.
Yes. Miyazaki, big fan of groin play, especially when swords and great hammers and stuff like that's involved, for sure.
Oh boy.
I just don't like Vort that much. It's a very forgettable boss. I'm going to put him in C. So you get gargoyled down to the undead settlement, and the next boss that I have here, so I think you have to fight this one next, is the curse-rotted Greatwood. So where do you have him?
You can skip him, but he's technically the next boss you could come across before the one after, but you can go by without ever fighting him.
Okay, yeah. And as far as like difficulty goes and stuff like that, I think it's meant to be fought in this general area of the game, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I also have him at B. A lot of these early ones are sitting at B's for me, apparently. I really don't like the ads in the first phase.
Yeah.
At all. They just keep coming. I do kind of like positioning, so the tree just keeps killing them all. That's fun. It's a cool set piece, though. And I mean, if you're using fire, it works very well. But sometimes it can be a pain in the butt to hit the weak spots that you're supposed to. And you're just hitting, like, the wood parts of him and not doing anything. It's like, okay, gotta position better, gotta go find this or that. And some of it's just a little annoying.
Yeah, can you imagine, like, going back to Dark Souls 3, fighting the cursed rotted Greatwood after you've played Elden Ring, and you, like, if I could only just do a jump attack, it would be way easier to hit
I'd be able to reach these spots.
These pustules or whatever they are. Yeah, that's going to be an adjustment. I'm gonna go back and play, like, Demon Souls and probably later this year. It's gonna be an adjustment with no jump and no horse and stuff like that. Cursed Rotted Greatwood, I'm also gonna put in B, partly because it's funny. The animations on him are pretty funny. He's got a lot of, like, just try to sit on you type moves, or like sit down and like rock side to side type stuff,
or stand up and then just fall over.
Yeah. So From Software has a very, like, underrated sense of humor with their animations and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm gonna put him at B. The fight itself is it's fine. The one saving grace, like you mentioned, I hate boss fights that have ads unless there's like a really good reason for it. But the one saving grace is that you don't really have to fight them. they're not super aggressive, and the Great Wood's probably going to kill them anyway. So not a big deal. I'll put him at B just for the weirdness and humor aspect.
The butt slams. B for butt slam.
Yes. Next up, I have the Crystal Sage next up. This was the next boss that I fought. So where are you putting the Crystal Sage? And if you want to consider when you see it again in the Grand Archives, that's cool too.
Okay, I have... Guess where I have Crystal Sage, apparently. Oh my goodness. Another B.
Okay, I was going to say.
Yeah, so another B. We're going to start branching out from there eventually, but for now, they've all been Bs. I didn't even realize I did that. Crystal Sage is a cool intro to caster boss, I think. To me, it teaches when you fight casters, stay on top of them. If you're up close and smacking them, they stagger and they can't do nothing. But if you stay at a distance, you're going to get wrecked.
Yep. And at this point in the game, especially if you're a new player, yeah, that's a good lesson to learn. Like when something's shooting magic at you, you have to rush right at it and learn to dodge through spells.
Yes, dodge into them.
Right. The attacks are pretty easy to dodge through in the Crystal Sage, I think. And this is an interesting one because it's like I described it as like a Zelda boss. This really reminds me of bosses I fought in Zelda games like my entire life, basically, like multiplying into copies and stuff like that. So yeah, I guess I'll put the Crystal Sage in B also. Again, by the time you've gotten to the Crystal Sage, I don't think this is going to be a super difficult fight, but it is, like you said, teaching you a little bit about magic, enemies that shoot magic, because to this point, there haven't been that many. So yeah, I'll put him in B also.
I have heard a lot of people say they have a lot of trouble with Crystal Sage. It's one of those ones, Souls finds your weakness. Some people won't have trouble with something, and for others, it's the hardest thing they've fought. And I've heard a number of people say that Crystal Sage is really hard for them.
Interesting.
I'm guessing as a caster, it would probably be really difficult.
Oh, yeah. I was playing as a pyromancer in my most recent playthrough, but I think I used the up close, I think it's called combustion spell during that fight, so you can stay real close to him. Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you're playing like all ranged magic, I could see how this could be really hard, because once the copies come out, the screen gets full of like magic missiles pretty quickly.
Yes, it does.
Cool. Next up, I fought the Abyss Watchers next, although this is a fork in the road. You can either go to the cathedral or you can go fight the Abyss Watchers. I fought the Abyss Watchers next, which was a mistake. I was not ready for the Abyss Watchers. So where do you have the Abyss Watchers?
So if we had gone the other direction for our next boss, we would have gotten out of B territory. But since we went to Abyss Watchers, it's another B for me.
Okay.
This one, very obviously, Artorias fan service.
Right.
It is kind of cool that they'll fight each other. But otherwise, I just spend so much time running in this fight, trying to keep distance to get a heal in, or to keep distance to wait for an opening to punish. I don't have too much fun with it, but it's not bad to me. Like my ones that are lower, where I'm just like, I don't like this fight at all. This one is just another kind of meh.
I spent a lot of time running in this fight, waiting for the third one to spawn, because I didn't want to fight both of them at the same time. So like they'll kill the neutral one pretty quickly. So whenever that happens, I just run laps around the arena until the third one spawns again, and then wait till it aggroes on one of them, and then I can get to work fighting again. So I agree. Like the way that I fought it, just a lot of time just spent kiting them around the arena, and it's not super fun. That being said, I agree with you. It's not bad, and when you are actually fighting, it's pretty good. It's a good fight to like learn the moves and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And on my most recent playthrough, this fight took me 25 tries. Like I just like this is another check of like the Crystal Sage, fairly easy, I think. The Cursed Rod of Greatwood, fairly easy. Vort is not that hard. The Abyss Watchers are one of those checks where it's like, okay, like, do you understand this combat system? Can you learn these boss moves? Because, man, that was so hard. So I'm going to put him in B when it's a one-on-one fight, and like the second phase when it's just you and the one with the fire sword and stuff like that. That's pretty fun. I enjoyed that. The first phase I don't like, although like visually and like story-wise, it's cool that they keep rising from the dead to fight each other. But as a boss fight, not a very fun first phase.
Yeah.
And another one of those things that From Software loves to do is if you die in the second phase, you have to do that first phase every time.
Yep.
Running around the arena. So, yeah, B for me. Deacons of the Deep is next, going into the Cathedral of the Deep, which was we also did top 3 levels on the main episode. This was one of my top 3 levels. I love the Cathedral of the Deep. But how do we feel about the boss?
For me, I have Deacons at A.
Interesting.
I enjoy the Deacons of the Deep. I think it's a good version of the group boss fight. It's easy to tell which one you need to go after. It's not too crazy hard to know, like, figure out which deacons do which things and how to position and handle them. And I have fun smashing through the group and getting to the main one. I like the set piece, with the giant throne behind them and everything.
Yeah.
I enjoy this fight. I always look forward to it. In Cinders, they add some Cathedral Knights in there, though, and that sucks.
Oh, yeah, I can't see that being very
There's
fun.
like 4 of them in there.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Have you ever played this game with like a big, like greatsword or like a huge weapon like that?
Oh, yeah.
Like
my main playthrough was full on strength. I was using the Great Club that you get out in the swamps beforehand.
Okay.
And so I was just batting the crap out of the group, and that's real fun. That's
exactly what I was thinking. Like going through this group would be like a Dynasty Warriors type thing. Like that would be pretty fun.
The Great Club is such a fun weapon in Dark Souls 3. The hold down charged R2 is basically a giant baseball swing.
Oh, nice.
And so you time that right, and all the normal sized deacons just get sent flying. They're just gone. And the big ones are at least staggered pretty good, sometimes knocked over. And so it's really fun that way. And which is probably why I like it so much.
No, it does sound fun to fight them that way. The way that I was fighting them with pyromancy and what was I? I think I was just using a longsword at this point in my most recent playthrough. Not very fun. I have this fight in C. It's very cool, like visually, I guess, and I think I like this around the same as the skeleton mob fight in Dark Souls 2. But yeah, this fight, I always die maybe 5 times in this fight. Like I get ganged up on one time. They have this attack that fills the air with curse if you don't kill enough of them that are like casting it at the same time, and it always takes me a while to get the whole rhythm down. So
if you, as a pyromancer, if you either come back to this fight later or do it on NG+, when you have some of the really giant area of effect fireballs, it's great then, because you just obliterate the whole crowd with a massive explosion. But if you're getting to it the normal pacing you should be as a pyromancer, you're going to have a rough time.
Yep, and have a rough time I did. So C for Deacons of the Deep. I don't hate it. It's just not very fun for me. But I agree the setting of it's cool in the with like the big, I think it's a tomb in that room.
Tomb, you're right. Yeah, it's a tomb.
It's cool. So next up is Wolnir. Wolnir, this is after the Abyss Watchers, but I took a detour to go do the Deacons of the Deep because you need an item from that fight in order to proceed. So Wolnir is next. Where do you have him?
We're back in B for B.
Okay.
And I only have one bee left after this, so most of the rest of the time we're going to be out of bees for me. So we're moving on. But I don't like the fight.
Mm-hmm.
I love the spectacle. It is very cool setting. Wolnir looks badass, but I don't like the fight, which is what holds it from being higher. Purely the spectacle and setting puts it up to a B for me.
Right.
The other skeletons getting spawned usually aren't a problem, but sometimes they'll surprise me from behind, and then I'm like, oh, well, that sucks. But trying to run up and hit the bracelets, and then suddenly he's swinging his arm, or it's out of reach, or he's filling the room with instant kill gas. Mm-hmm. I'm just like, I have a hard time getting hits in, and it bugs me. It feels more like a chore, even though I'm enjoying the spectacle every time I fight him.
Yeah. I think I agree with you that like the spectacle of it is great. Like I said before, actually doing the fight is not the most fun, but I'm putting it in A tier because the spectacle is that good for me. Giant skeleton, like the biggest skeleton and in all of the games. There's some kind of like ghost skeletons in Elden Ring that look as big as Wolnir.
I think in Elden Ring, the ones sitting on the giant thrones might be bigger if you've seen those.
Maybe. I don't remember those. Maybe I haven't seen them yet, but I'm looking forward to it if I haven't seen them yet, because I love a good giant skeleton.
Oh, for sure.
And kind of that like just like that theme of how he's trying to like this is like his last ditch effort to stay out of the abyss, and then when you kill him he gets dragged down into it. It's really, really cool. And I think my first playthrough, I didn't know what to do. Like I didn't figure out that I should hit the big shiny bracelets, and so I think I did get killed by the instant death gas. Like as it fills the room, you get slowly pushed like further and further and further and until you like just run out of space eventually. So yeah, A for me, Wolnir. Just like, man, if you're listening to this and you haven't played Dark Souls 3, look up a picture of High Lord Wolnir.
Watch a video, because it is a fantastic spectacle.
Yeah. Yeah, it's real good. Next one, debatable whether it's good spectacle or not. After you beat Wolnir, you can go down into the Smoldering Lake, and you'll find the old Demon King down there. And I think this level is too high level for you at this point, but I'm going to talk about it now. It would be tough. But the old Demon King, not so tough, I don't think. So let's just go ahead and get that out of the way.
I have him at D.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. He's not that fun to fight for me. It's another one where I spend a lot of time running around, waiting for an opening when I can get close enough, hit him once, and run around again.
Yeah.
There's one sad, cool thing that happens at the end of the fight.
Yep.
If you get him down low enough in health, but don't kill him, he can't do anything anymore.
Right.
He's struggling to get up, and he can't, and you can just sit there for as long as you want, and he won't be able to get up. It adds a cool little bit of kind of set-piece storytelling, but you never learn enough about him anyways for you to really care that much. It's like, that could have been a very meaningful moment. Instead, it's kind of like, oh, there's something there. All right, let's finish this.
Yeah, it kind of seems like he's like the last of the demons or something like that. There's some other demons like around the world, but you get the feeling that this is like the last of its kind or something like that. So when he does kind of just like, he's just totally spent, basically. When you do get to that point, I think that is really cool. It's like not as like emotionally affecting as Sif in Dark Souls 1, but it's like that. I have it in C because it's just not a very fun fight, and that one moment is not enough to like bring it up. But I agree with you. It's not a super fun fight. You fought so many dudes just like this, and he has at least one attack, maybe two, where all you can do is run behind a wall and just wait for it to end, and then you can go out and fight again. So, yeah. I think I beat this on my first try, both playthroughs. It's pretty easy, and yeah, just not the most fun. Old Demon King, C for me.
And D for me.
Okay. Next up is Pontiff Sullivan. Pontiff Sullivan is next on my list, and I can't remember if this is like exactly the order I did it in. I think it is. Anyway, where do you have Pontiff Sullivan?
I have Pontiff Sullivan at a C. I don't like fighting this guy. Has too many moves that I'm just like, that's bullcrap. And then he gets his little shadow friend that also makes me think, that's bullcrap.
Yeah.
You can parry him, right?
Yes, and that's
okay.
That's the only way I'm able to get consistent damage is by parrying him. And I don't parry in these games. Like
I never parry in these games.
Yep.
So that's probably why this is total bullcrap to me.
Well, this is like, so I'm putting him in C also. I also don't like this fight. And I don't like parrying in Dark Souls. It's like the risk reward is not good enough for me. Like, the reward is not good enough for the amount of times that I fail and die.
Exactly.
And I don't like to come up against a boss where it's like, this boss is insanely hard unless you like practice parrying for 45 minutes before you can actually beat him just by using this one strategy. So yeah, my first playthrough, I could not beat him and I had to summon help to do it. This last playthrough, I'd spent some time learning how to parry. I was able to do it, but I didn't have fun doing it. So I'm putting it in, we'll put it in C. Like D is for bad ideas and bad bosses, I think. I don't think this is a bad boss. I just don't like it. And I don't like,
Same.
I don't like the idea that comes out of it that just like, this boss is really easy if you learn how to parry. And if you don't learn how to parry, it's really fucking hard.
Yeah, you have one verb that works for you.
Yeah.
Which is, thankfully, something that Elden Ring has done amazing, where, like, you always have a ton of verbs that can work in every situation.
I'm also marking Pontiff Sullivan down because of the Fight Club people that hang out right after his arena when you're embered. And you will always get invaded right after his arena
yes,
if you're
you
not
will.
Careful. And that's Pontiff Sullivan's fault. I'm blaming that on him.
It's all his fault.
Yeah.
Setting up his little fight clubs in his backyard.
Yeah. So C, Pontiff Sullivan. Next up is Aldrich. Aldrich is next up.
I also have Aldrich at C. The first time I fought him, and if I had only ever fought him that time, I think I'd rank him higher, because it didn't take me that many tries, and I pulled it off. And I was like, that was a kind of interesting, different fight.
Mm-hmm.
But every single time since then, I get caught by some cheap bullshit. And I'm like, I have to do it again. I have to do it again. I have to do it again. And it gets annoying. I like the idea of Aldrich that became powerful by just eating people.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what? I'm going to get power by eating everybody.
Yep.
It's a cool idea. You know, the devourer of gods. Those are the things that save it from being a D for me, is I like the story around Aldrich. I wish they would have explored more about the deep as an alternative to Cycles of Fire in Dark Souls, but of course they never did.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the ideas and lore around Aldrich. I do not like the fight.
Yeah, I think we said this in the main episode, but this is the best story content in Dark Souls 3. I think just chasing Aldrich, and all along the way you're hearing about Aldrich. Aldrich is the devourer. We're making these sacrifices to Aldrich. These people are being led down here so Aldrich can eat them.
You have Henri and Horus.
Yep.
Is it Horus?
Mm-hmm. It's Horus.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have Aldrich in B. I actually do think the fight's pretty fun, but I agree with you. There is some bullshit. There's just too much stuff floating around the air, homing on you in the fight. Other than that, I think it's pretty good. And I like the kind of like you're in a very familiar place. If you played Dark Souls 1, you're in this familiar place, and seeing what Aldrich has done to it is cool. It's Adam and I talked about this. It's one of the only fan service reference things in Dark Souls 3 that really, really works for both of us, is seeing this like formerly pure and holy place just fucking disgusting because of what Aldrich is doing in there. So,
yeah,
B for me.
if I was rating him off of just my first time fighting him, where I got lucky enough to get him on like it's only like my third or fourth try, like not that many tries,
Mm-hmm.
And it felt reasonable. He might be a B, possibly an A,
Mm-hmm.
but all the other times I fought him just was way too annoying and dragged him down for me. I realized it was a fluke that I did so good that first time.
Oh, I just remembered my first time, like I think it's Henri's quest line. You get summoned by her. Like there's a summon sign to go into her world, her for me.
And help her fight
and
him.
help her fight Aldrich. So I did that.
It was him for me.
Right.
But yes.
Yeah, depending on what gender your character is. And so like
Yes.
I went in and I fought Aldrich in Henri's world and we won. And I was like, sweet. I beat Aldrich. And then I went back to my
No.
world and then I was like, oh, I have to fight Aldrich again. Okay, this kind of sucks. And it
Stupid multiverse.
took me a while. Yeah.
I blame the MCU. Even though they didn't have multiverse till way after.
Yeah. Okay. Aldrich is down. Let's take a little music break, and when we come back, we'll get into some other Lords of Cinder here. So next up in the Lords of Cinder track, I guess going down through Irithyll Dungeon into the profaned capital where we fight Yorm the Giant. So I think after Aldrich, you get teleported back to the church where you fight Dancer, right?
No, it's whoever you fight last, Aldrich or Yorm.
Okay. All right. So let's fight Yorm.
Okay, so Yorm is one that I wish I could rate higher.
Uh-huh.
It's a D for me.
Same.
Because the fight is just, it's awful, honestly. I can't even get the special weapon to fire and hit him properly half the time.
Mm-hmm.
I really like having, your buddy there show up, which is it Sigmeier? I always forget which is which.
I do too.
Sigward?
I think, yeah, I do too. And like, dude, I just recorded about Dark Souls 3 last week and we got it right last week and I can't remember now. But one of the onions is with you. Yeah.
And like if you've done his quest, it's really neat to be doing a boss cutscene and you're like, oh dang, he's here too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's kind of cool. But then wait, why are there two of these weapons? Why can I have one?
Right.
And he has
two of
one.
These legendary one-of-a-kind weapons. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a couple cool moments. I like the idea of Yorm. There's just enough story that I'm like, it could be cool, but it's definitely something they ran out of time on. Profaned Flame and all that being another type of flame and idea and all that. There's little hints that it could have been really good, but the fight itself is just, it's bad. It's a D for me.
I have it in D also, and this is one of the biggest like disappointments because Yorm's in the opening cutscene of Dark Souls 3, and as soon as I saw that, I was like, holy shit, I'm gonna have to fight that thing. Like that's gonna be cool, and it was not cool. It's pretty anticlimactic. My most recent playthrough, the Onion Bro, I think it's Sigmeier in this game. No, I'm not gonna guess. I can't remember. The Onion Bro died immediately in the fight.
Oh, dang.
So like I raced over to Stormruler. I picked it up, equipped it, and turned around, and he was dying right as I turned around. So I had to fight Yorm by myself, and it's not very fun. The Stormruler does tons of damage to him, but it takes a long time to charge up, and Yorm has a huge reach. So
yeah, he does.
It's a lot of just like run through his legs, run to the other side of the arena, charge up the Stormruler, and then repeat. It's pretty bad. Of the 3 fights that do this kind of gimmick between Demon Souls, this one, and the one in Elden Ring, this is definitely the worst one, I think.
By far.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree 100%.
I just did the one in Elden Ring like yesterday or 2 days ago.
That's such a great boss.
Fucking cool. So cool.
Yeah, it is. It is possibly the most metal moment in all of the Soulsborne.
It's very awesome. So, oh man, I can't wait to do Elden Ring month on the podcast. I can't wait.
And that boss gives me my favorite weapon in the game.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's right. I ate the boss soul because I can't use that weapon. So,
oh, it's so good.
Anyway.
And it's so good when your mimic buddy has him. Yep.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the other underrated part in Elden Ring. Not to get on a big Elden Ring tangent, but when you find a cool weapon, you're like, not only do I get to use this, but my mimic is going to use this too, and we're just going to tear shit up together.
Yep.
Next up, so we are ready to go fight Dancer of the Boreal Valley now. So you go back to the church. Your buddy in the church, I can't remember her name, she dies, and the dancer descends from the top of the church where it's maybe been hanging out this whole time, just chilling. Anyway, how do you feel about Dancer?
Dancer's a C for me.
Interesting.
It's another one that I can't wrap my head around the fight. It feels lucky when I win. It always takes a ton of tries. I like the design.
Mm-hmm.
I like the coming down from above is very well done, very cool. The arena catching on fire is very cool.
Yep.
But I cannot get my head around this fight, and it always takes me a ton of tries.
That was me my first playthrough. I just could not get it. I had to summon help to beat it my first playthrough. It was so hard. My most recent playthrough, I really came to appreciate this fight, and I just appreciate how you have, if you're like us or like me, you've spent hundreds of hours accumulating this rhythm to Dark Souls combat, right? And in the Dancer fight, it's a different rhythm. I've heard it described, and I don't personally subscribe to this, as being in a different time signature, if you want to talk about it in musical terminology. But it does make sense to at least think about that, to let you, again, if you're listening and haven't played it, it's on a different rhythm than any other fight in a Dark Souls game. The animations on the Dancer are so cool. Like you said, the church catching on fire, awesome. The only thing I still can't get is it has that big twirling ballerina type move where it gets 6 to 10 hits, basically just twirling around.
You just have to run away.
Yeah, and there's no other way to do it than just run away or be very far away when it starts. So I think it was helped by me playing a more ranged character with Pyromancy this most recent time, but I'm putting Dancer in the A tier because everything about the fight, the design, the animation, the arena is awesome, and I think the fight itself is pretty cool. Pretty cool to learn and to experience. So in the A tier with Wolnir, Dancer of the Boreal Valley. Next up, after you beat Dancer, you're able to go toward Lothric Castle, but first we're going to take a diversion into one of the weirder bosses in Dark Souls history, which is Osiris. I think the Consumed King, I think is his subtitle. Osiris.
Yes.
So where are you going to put Osiris on this tier list?
I have this one at an A.
Cool.
I like the design of this boss. I like how they look. I like the baby weirdness going on with it.
A lot of baby weirdness, yep.
The voice work and the talking is cool to me, which was sadly underused, I think, in Dark Souls, having bosses talk and say things.
Right.
More of them could have used that, I think. I like all that. There's been a few times where this boss starts to grate on the that's bullshit with me, but I tend to get him down quick enough that I don't get too frustrated. It doesn't take a ton of tries.
Right.
And I like the setup overall.
Yeah, I agree. I in my head, I think this fight is kind of bullshit, but I've never spent more than 2 or 3 tries trying to beat him, so it can't be that bullshit, right? He has a lot of attacks that are charging attacks, which are some of my least favorite, types of boss
because you're still
attacks.
trying to spin your camera around, and then he's already smashed you into the ground again.
So you do get locked in these, like he'll do a charge attack, you get hit, you drink an Estus, and then you turn around and he's charging at you again, and you get hit, and then you drink an Estus, and you can get locked in that rhythm. But I have him in the B tier because, again, it's such a weird character, and like you said, him talking throughout the fight is something they took into Elden Ring. A lot of the bosses in Elden Ring do that. And
it's so good. All of their voice work is so good.
Yep, it's good. And the voice work on Osiris is good too. Just screaming for Ocelot, talking about, you are the son of dragons and stuff like that. Ocelot may or may not be real. That's another cool thing.
Who knows?
I think canonically it is real, but like I think that took people like data mining that there is actually like just an invisible baby model in there to find out. So yeah, cool spectacle. The fight itself is not the best, but it's also not like bad. I don't think it's bad. And in contrast to Pontiff Sullivan, it's also not very hard, which allows me to like be a bit more generous with all the other stuff. So B tier for Osiris for me. Next up, you go through Lothric Castle, and before you can go into the archives, you have to fight the Dragon Slayer armor. So where do you put the Dragon Slayer armor?
Dragon Slayer armor is my last one that is in the B tier.
Okay.
It's a good fight. It's I like it as a one-on-one fight. It takes a little use to getting to the weird shield bashes he can do. Once you get used to that, it's not too bad. Honestly, what holds it down for me is the butterflies off to the side being able to shoot you. That gets annoying.
Yeah, missiles and ranged attacks coming from off screen feels kind of cheap sometimes.
Yeah.
I have him in A tier because I have almost never been hit by one of those missiles. And it's not because I'm like watching them or something. I'm rarely just like fighting the Dragon Slayer armor and just get like smashed from something off screen. I can see them coming and like I don't know if you keep moving, maybe they don't track you super well. I don't know. I have him in A because this feels like a Dark Souls 1 style,
Yeah.
This feels like I'd
agree with that.
Dark Souls 3 has a bunch of bosses, that like seemingly have infinite stamina and they can just combo, and Dragon Slayer armor is not like that. It definitely has like big attacks, and if you dodge them, then you've earned the right to get some attacks in yourself, and that's the way these bosses should be. So I really like Dragon Slayer armor. It's in A. It's not in S because I do think ranged attacks coming from things that you can't attack yourself is not the most fun. I think maybe you can like shoot the butterflies with bows, but I don't know why you would try that.
You'll get punished for doing that. But I've also rarely been hit by them, but I've been hit by them just enough to hold Dragon Slayer from being an A for me. Because without the butterflies, it would be an A, absolutely, for me.
He can also bash you off the level, which is not the most not the most fun. Like, okay, I got hit with the attack, that's cool, but now I'm dead because he knocked me off the level.
Yep.
I don't really like it when bosses can do that. The fucking man-eaters in Demon Souls, another one.
That fight.
It happens rarely enough with Dragon Slayer armor that I still really like this. So A tier for me, up there with Wolnir and Dancer in the A tier. Whew. You know how I just said Dark Souls 3 has a bunch of bosses that have infinite stamina and just combo. Next up is Champion Gundyr. So where are you going to put Champion Gundyr on this?
C. Just because that infinite stamina, too aggressive. You can't do anything against him unless you're really good at parrying, like Pontiff Sullivan. But yeah, it's harder to parry even than Pontiff Sullivan.
Right. And unlike Pontiff Sullivan, if you miss the parry in Champion Gundyr, he is going to combo stun lock you to death.
Yeah.
So C tier for you, you said?
Yep, C for me.
Yeah, I think I'll put him in C also because it's not bad. I imagine if you were very good at the game, Champion Gundyr is like could be fun. But it's too hard for me. I think
Yeah.
in the base game of Dark Souls 3, this is the hardest boss, I think. So it's in C tier, and it's because of that just hyper aggressive. If you're playing a ranged character, I fucking good luck.
Yeah, I don't
with
know how you'll
Champion
get
Gundyr.
anything off.
I've never been able to beat him without summoning the Swordmaster nearby. The Swordmaster does great work against Champion Gundyr. There's a summon sign outside for the naked dude with the katana next to Firelink Shrine.
I've always summoned him for Vort. So maybe if you summon him for Vort, he doesn't show up for Champion, because I can't remember having him.
I've never summoned him for Vort. So, yeah. Second to last boss in the main game, back to the castle. So this is the last Lord of Cinder, and it's kind of the conclusion to the story that the game has been telling so far, and it's Lothric and Lorien. So where are you going to put the twins?
All right, I'm going to give a little bit of reasoning behind the rating before I even give the rating.
Okay.
This was the first boss I came to when I came back to Dark Souls 3 after taking a break for like a couple years.
Oh, geez.
Before I took that break from Souls games, I had beaten Bloodborne and I had played up to this point in Dark Souls 3.
Mm-hmm.
I was terrified of fighting bosses. I always summoned actual other people to help me. I was very intimidated by bosses.
Mm-hmm.
Coming to it this late, there weren't really people around to summon for bosses unless I went on, Reddit. There's a subreddit just for saying, hey, I want some help here. And
right.
I have used that to good effect before. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to see if I can fight for real, like myself. It took a lot of tries, but I eventually got it, and it was amazing. It never felt cheap to me. It always just felt like, okay, I know what I did wrong. I need to fix it. This is my first S tier that we're going to have.
Me too.
Lothric and Lorien, very, very good fight. Never feels too cheap. It feels learnable, which sometimes when they go too difficult, it doesn't. Like Champion Gundyr, it just feels like bullshit. It felt learnable. And it was also the first time where it's like, maybe I'm not shit at these games. Maybe I like them and I'm okay at them.
Yeah. I think this is like the ideal level of difficulty, but also learnability in Dark Souls 3, I guess, like with the speed and everything that it's going at. Because I agree, they seemingly have a bunch of moves, and all their moves are real different. There's long range, like magic attacks, the teleporting attacks, basic sword combos. But once you learn them, this fight is really not that hard, and it's a really fun one to learn. And I also have it in S tier for that reason. And there's also just very good, like the voice acting and the character stuff that happens with the twins in the fight is really good. The second phase where the amount of damage you do is based on what part of them you hit, because the small one you're trying to hit's riding on the big one's back.
This is one where if you could jump like Elden Ring, it would totally change it and make it way easier.
Yeah. Yep. For sure. Yeah, I agree. This is S tier. Like story-wise, it's very cool. You have the prince who like was supposed to become a Lord of Cinder and said, no, that sounds bad. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
That's cool. And his brother, who I think there's a story with his brother taking on, like fighting demons. Like he's a very capable warrior. When you get in there, his brother is like very clearly not okay.
Crawling on the ground, legs don't work. And that's from the demon wars he went and fought.
Yeah. So that's really cool. And then Yeah, it's really like when I finished fighting this, when I finished this, I put my summon sign down and I helped like, the next 5 or 10 people that summoned me fight this. And yeah, it's really fun. I really
Yeah.
like this fight. I'm out of
Very
things
good
to
fight.
say, but I really like it. S tier for sure.
Absolutely.
Lothric and Lorien. Okay. S tier to something that I'm guessing is going to be a little bit lower. So we're not going to go to Soul of Cinder yet. We're going to go do optional stuff and DLC. So first, let's stay in the base game though, and let's go to the Ancient Wyvern. So where do you have the Ancient Wyvern?
D.
Okay.
There's one thing that could be changed that would bump it up probably multiple levels for me.
Okay.
Because I like puzzle gimmick bosses. I like them a lot. They can feel really cool to figure out.
They can. Yeah.
This one, all of the other guys all over the place is what ruins it for me. If it was just the dragon and trying to work your way up through this castle to get to the spot to do your final blow, it would be easily a B, maybe an A for me, depending on how they had the dragon interact with you in the ruins.
Right. Maybe if it was like the dragon god in Demon Souls, where
I hate the dragon god, though.
Well, I hate the execution of the dragon god, but the idea of like, if he's shooting fire at you as you're climbing through this castle.
Yeah.
And then you make it to the top and you can do your jumping, plunging attack to kill him. That would be fine. If, I don't know, if they did a better execution of the idea where he's taking swings at you or something like that.
Yep.
That
reaching
would be
through
fine.
certain windows, all that type of stuff. But instead, because there's all of the other mobs around, all you're doing is trying to run past all them and trying not to get tagged by some cheap attack from behind you from a guy you just ran past. That's it.
And there's right at the end of that climb, there's a dude with like a giant the chain thing, and that chain reaches so fucking
far.
Yeah.
And that ruins it for me, because it's all about running past guys that then tag you from off screen, like we talked about, that sucks, hoping you can get to the easy kill spot.
And then when you get to the easy kill spot,
you can miss the plunge.
Real finicky whether or not you're actually going to hit the plunge.
And you have to run through it again.
And it's a far enough drop that you die if you miss the plunge.
I've survived the fall.
Okay, maybe if you have enough hit points or something like that.
And then you have to do the run again.
Oh god, it sucks.
It's stupid.
Yeah, Ancient Wyvern, I'm putting it down in the bed of chaos. Like fuck this sucks tier because I hate it. I hate all of these different variables that like you said, full of dudes that are running out from behind corners to stab you as you're trying to run through. Fine. Cool. Getting up to that plunge spot, jumping down and like, oh, you jumped when he was stationary, but he decided to move and now you're going to miss that plunging attack.
His head moved.
It's going to take you a couple minutes to run back up to that spot, or you're going to die and you're going to have to start all over. So, and
if you try to fight through the castle, you're fighting the guys and then the room gets filled with fire and you're dead.
Yep. Sucks. It's, Bed of Chaos tier, which is something I don't say lightly, because the Bed of Chaos it's the Bed of Chaos. If you're familiar, you know why it has its own tier instead of saying F tier for me. So, yeah, Ancient Wyvern sucks. Let's move on to something that I think is better, which is the Nameless King.
This is another S tier for me.
Hell yeah.
He is real hard, and he kicked my ass for a long time because I am terrible at dodge rolling delayed attacks, which is his specialty. Like, he pulls up and I'm like, dodge, and then he swings. I'm like, shit.
Right.
One time I have beat him without summons, and I felt like such a badass doing it. Although I will say, getting good enough at the first phase took a long time too, but eventually I got to the point where I could almost every time no hit the first phase, so it was just a time tax, which kind of sucked.
Yep.
I just wanted to do what I considered the main fight at that point. And he is hard enough that most of the time I'm like, I don't want to try to beat him on my own again. I'm going to summon. But it is a cool fight. It is a cool arena. It is a cool design. And it felt so good when I figured him out and pulled off beating him.
Same. My first playthrough, I think I heard because I played this in 2019 or something like that for the first time. So I think I heard the reputation that Nameless King has before I fought him. And I died, 10 or so times, and I kind of psyched myself out like, hey, you're not going to be able to do this. Summon help. So I summoned help and I beat him. And on my replay, I beat him by myself. I beat all the bosses in the main game except Champion Gundyr by myself. And that was a great feeling. And I have him in the A tier. It would be an S tier, but I really don't like the first phase of the fight at all.
Yeah, that time tax is rough. It's real close to knocking out an S tier for me.
Like, it's not hard. Like, once I learned how it goes,
Don't lock on.
I never died. And man, I hate fights where the advice is not to lock on, because I love the lock on system.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it'll like give you motion sickness in this fight though, if you lock on the whole time. So I don't like it a whole lot. And the first phase turns into like, you're going to lose a few Estus during this, and it's going to be a little bit less than you can use in the actual like tough part. So, But I love the second phase. I think it's one of the ideal, like, you can learn this. You can learn this. And he doesn't have infinite stamina, and he doesn't just like attack. He
does not have super combos.
Yeah. If you're able to dodge, the problem, I guess, is like the number of attacks in his combos is a little bit unpredictable, but you can figure out like this attack is always the last part. Like when he does his lightning, jam it down into the ground attack. If you dodge that, you can hit him a few times. And I was playing Pyromancer, so there were lots of times when I was able to throw a few fireballs as he's like slowly walking toward you and stuff like that. So
yeah, the biggest thing I think is you have to learn not to panic dodge.
Yep.
Because his delayed attacks will get you every time. You have to be very deliberate and know the right time to dodge.
Yep. I think this is one of those that like, I feel like some of those swings have variable timings. Like,
yeah,
that might be true. And it might just be because, I never remember to dodge at the right time. And I always dodge when he lifts the weapon up, And
you're like, oh crap, too early.
Yep. Too early. It's another one of those fights that is kind of reinforcing, like, don't dodge backwards, dodge around him, dodge into him. You'll be fine. You can hit him and then dodge away after that. So before we head into the DLC, let's take a little music break. When we come back, we're going to the Ashes of Ariandel DLC. So Ashes of Ariandel, 2 bosses, and I'm curious to hear what you think about these. The first one is the Champion Gravetender and the Great Wolf. I think that's the name. Champion Gravetender is the name of the dude, though. So how do you feel about this one?
So I will preface this by saying the DLCs have a very bad reputation.
Yes, they do.
People do not like them. I do not like them. For the most part, I do like the bosses in them.
Okay.
But I hate getting to the bosses because I don't like playing the actual DLC themselves.
Okay.
But this boss is not one that I really like. It's a C for me.
Okay.
It's kind of just a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
I've only ever fought it, I think, once, and every other time I've played, I'm like, I'm not going to go down there and deal with that. Getting down there is a pain in the ass. Being down there is a pain in the ass. The boss is not great. It's not worth it.
Yeah. I'm putting this in D. I don't have any fun in this fight. Like, none at all. The dude is not very fun to fight. It's just an NPC dude who can parry you. I guess that's cool.
And there's wolves running around.
Yeah, there's a couple wolves.
On top of it.
Then you have to fight the dude, and then you have to make sure you get the dude down as much as you can before the big wolf shows up. It is kind of cool that, if I remember right, if you fought the big wolf as you're going around the level, it'll come in with a little bit less HP. That's cool.
I think so.
But the wolf itself is not fun to fight. It's Sif, but with no sword. Just kind of swinging his head at you. So D for me, this fight sucks.
And it might actually be a D for me as well. I'm not sure why it's in C. I can't think of anything that would put it in C for me. So maybe it is a D.
Doesn't have any redeeming qualities, really.
No.
Except, like, I guess it's cool that the wolf comes in with a little bit less health if you fought it out in the field, but that's not that cool, you know?
Yeah. It's like, okay, the game remembers what I did, sure.
Yeah. Could be more fun, for sure. Next up, Sister Friede.
I think my rating on this one is going to make people upset.
Okay, let's hear it.
I have this as an S.
Okay.
I really, really like Sister Friede, and a lot of people really, really hate her.
Yep.
I've never had that much trouble with her. I don't know why.
This can be like Adam and I talked about this, and I think we talked about this in the Bloodborne episode, but like all of us have one of these bosses where it's like, I know everyone has a hard time, but I didn't for some reason. And I'm not like a pro gamer, but I just didn't have trouble with some of these.
So I do use the NPC summon for this fight most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
I was caught off guard by the extra phases.
Yep.
The first time I played it. So the first time I played it, or did the fight, I got the summon, and I went in there, and I was like, where the hell's my summon? Because they aren't there for the first phase.
Oh, right.
And it took me a while to get the first phase. I was having some trouble. And then I got it down, and I've never had too much trouble with the first phase since. The invisible part, people seem to have a lot of trouble with. I used sound cues. You can hear when she suddenly speeds up to run at your back, and you just roll, and she misses me every time. But I know sound cues don't always work for everybody.
Right.
Especially if that's the only cue you have. I can definitely understand not liking it, but for me, the sound cues have worked. And then I got through the first phase, and the second phase started with big ol' mad Soup Daddy. Which I liked. I was like, this is ridiculous. It's that silliness that From can pull off while being kind of terrifying that I really enjoyed. My summon came in, and I quickly learned, let my summon deal with Psycho Scythe Lady over there. I'm just going to beat on this big guy that's easy to dodge.
Right.
And got through that phase, I think on my second time getting to it. The first phase took a while. The second phase, I died the first time I got to it, beat it the second time, and then a third phase starts.
Yeah. And that third phase is a doozy. It is something.
And the way it went for me is probably why it's S tier for me, because the third phase starts and I'm like, oh shit. The summon dies in the first attack in the third phase, so I'm alone. But then I one-shot that third phase.
Wow.
I dodged like crazy. I was rolling all over the place. I was freaking out, but I was getting my hits in, and I barely survived it by the skin of my teeth. And so I have very good feelings about this fight.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever one-shot the third phase again. It's always taken a couple tries, but it's never been that bang my head against the wall that it is for a lot of people, which is why I understand why a lot of people don't like it.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair enough. And like, you're your reasoning for it is fine, because I have that reason for, like, I know a lot of people really think the Nameless King is like incredibly hard, and some people say it's not fair. And I just didn't have a lot of trouble with it. I found it very learnable. So I have a higher opinion of the Nameless King. Friede is not one of those for me, though. I have Friede in, I'll put her in B, I guess, like, because the first two phases I think are fine. And if the fight ended after phase 2, I think I would put it much higher, because I think it's still pretty fair within those first 2 phases. And I like the second phase a lot. I don't think the third phase is very fair. Like I talked about this with Adam. I think the third phase is playing by Bloodborne rules, but you are a Dark Souls character, and I don't like that.
Yep.
It's too much. She has too many attacks. They're too fast. And yeah, some of her attacks just hit so hard, and I just I don't like it. Do not like it. The third phase. And again, it's that thing from before when we talked about the Nameless King. You have to do the first 2 phases.
Every time.
You can't just like practice the third phase and get better at it. You have to do the first 2 phases every time. And I don't like that either. So yeah, Friede is going in B pretty much because of the third phase. The first 2 would have been enough. And the spectacle of it would have been enough with just the first 2 phases, I think, too.
Yeah, I think multi-phase fights could be fixed if you didn't have to redo phases, for the most part. Certain fights, it would make sense, but if there was a story reason, if they could work it into the story for certain fights that are really hard, it would make people like those fights more. A lot more, I think.
I also think there's a psychological thing where you have to beat 3 full health bars in Dark Souls 3. That's how Dark Souls 3 handles these. And whereas
instead of phase transitioning within 1 health bar.
Right. You get halfway, or you kill one of Ornstein and Smo, then they do the phase change. Or in Elden Ring, they've, for the most part, switched back to, like, you get the boss to half health, then there's a phase change. For the most part. And I like that a lot more. I think it's just a psychological thing.
You have a much better idea of, okay, I've done this much, I've gotten this far, instead of, oh god, I'm starting over.
Right, exactly. So Friede is one of the poster children for things that are wrong with Dark Souls 3 boss fights, but I think the first 2 phases are fine. So B for me. Next up, Friede is also where I start to really hate this DLC. This is like the beginning of the downhill thing for me. Next up, we go to the Ringed City, which I said in the main episode, I think the Ringed City is the worst content that modern From Software has made. Like, the worst, the least fun. That's counting everything from the original Demon Souls to the present. Not fun for me personally. So Demon Prince is first, and you start out with the 2 demons, and then when you kill them, they morph into the Demon Prince itself. So where's this one for you?
When you kill one of them, the other one superpowers.
Oh, is that right?
And depending on which one you kill, that next phase is different. They have different moves depending on which one you kill.
Okay. I thought maybe it's because I always just tried to kill the poison one first when I do the fight. That it always turns out to be big fire one in the second phase.
No, phase 2 is different depending on which one you kill first. So yeah, the Ringed City. I hate the Ringed City because I like the story behind it. I like the lore of going to the end of time. I like the design. I like the look. I hate playing through the levels, but I like the bosses.
Okay.
All of them. I like all the bosses in Ringed City, but I hate playing through Ringed City so much that I never do on replays. Even though I like the bosses and would like to go fight them again, it's not worth it to me to even get to them.
Yeah.
But Demon Prince are an A to me. It's another one that the first time I got to them, it only took me a handful of tries and I got it. it's always taking me longer since. I've never done it as easily as I did that first time for whatever reason.
Same.
But I enjoy the fight. I like that you can pick and choose what your second phase is if you know what you're doing. I like that you can have Patches with you, even though he doesn't know he's Patches at the time. And you realize that Patches is actually a good person if he doesn't have his freaking memories to make him be like, nah, I like being an asshole.
Yeah.
But I like the fight. It's way better than the old Demon King to me, but it can be kind of stupid hard sometimes.
It is. I have it at, where did I put it just now? I have it at C because I generally just don't like 2-on-1 fights in Dark Souls in general. And then if you summon help, they get extra health, and extra health in the second phase when it's the giant one.
Yeah.
Man, that thing is so hard if it has a health buff because you have because you're doing co-op. And
that's one thing I was going to say is they do a ton of damage to you and you do not do very much damage to them.
Right. And this is where Dark Souls 3 also has this reputation for like an HP bloat problem.
Yeah.
And the Ring City DLC
is the worst of it.
It is, it's so, even the fights that are coming, one fight coming up that I really love, man, it just has too much HP. So that's how I feel about this one too, especially if you're summoning help because you want to level the playing field, basically. So yeah, this one goes in C for me. It's not a D because it's not Yorm, and it's better than the Champion Gravetender and the Big Wolf, but not very fun. So my most recent playthrough just a couple months ago, this is where I quit. I fought the Demon Prince maybe 20, 25 times, and I just could not beat it because I was playing a Pyromancer, and
oh jeez,
all my weapons do fire damage. These things are super resistant to that. I also had a weapon that did dark damage because it has the same scaling as Pyromancer stuff does. And that still doesn't do much. I think they're pretty resistant to that as well. So it felt like, and then like I started to think like, okay, so I'm going to get through this. I know what the actual Ring City level is like, and I hate it so much.
Fuck that place.
Yep. Not fun at all. And then I was thinking like, oh, I'm going to go fight Midir later. He's super resistant to dark and fire. Oh, I'm going to go fight, Half-Light. Well, Half-Light's the next one. So this was like this was the point. This was the point where I was like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm just going to go beat the Soul of Cinder now and finish this. The Ring City, thinking about like what was to come, even though there's one fight here that I really love. So Half-Light is next on our tier list. And where are you putting Half-Light?
I'm putting Half-Light at a C.
Okay.
The only reason it's not a D for me is because if you go offline, it's really easy.
Yep.
To me, that's the only redeeming quality is that you just go offline and it's really easy. I will say I have had some fun being Half-Light, being on the other end of the equation.
Oh yeah, in the
just
Covenant.
ruining people's days. But they've done the idea of a person being a boss before. I like the other, when they did it in Demon Souls, which I only played in the remake because I didn't play the PS3. But I like that one because it's just you and the person.
Yep.
That's all it is. This one is not just you and the person. It's you, the boss, and the person is their helper.
Right.
And it sucks.
In Dark Souls 2, the presentation of it is so cool. But my Dark Souls 2, like, online connectivity stuff is so fucking weird that, like, I could never get a player summoned in as part of the Mirror Knight fight. It was always an NPC. I have Half-Light in D because I hate PvP in Dark Souls. Like, the issue with it, especially with this one, is that, like, I'm sure there are some people like you who did that just to check it out and see what it was like and have a good time. Like, I assume you didn't spend like weeks doing this with a dedicated
No.
PvP build, right?
No, I've never had a PvP build.
Right.
I did it for I think I did it 3 times, and the reason I stopped is because the last 2 times was against the same person, and they weren't very good, and I felt bad.
Oh no!
And I was like, I'm not going to keep I'm not going to keep stopping this person. I'm done, like so that they can progress without me getting in their way.
Right.
Because it's weird. I hate PvP games. If I'm doing it on my terms, can have some fun PvP with the Dark Souls games.
Right.
I like the old monk on the Demon Souls remake.
Yeah.
Although I've only been able to do it on the player side, because whenever I've tried to be the old monk, they die before they get to me.
Oh, right.
Every time I get a sudden notification, like I'm waiting there in the boss room and I'm waiting, I'm like setting up an ambush. So-and-so has died. And I'm like, God damn it.
Those mind
I didn't even get
on
a
the
fight
stairs. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, no, exactly. Every time. They have never made it to me.
So the thing with Half-Light, like, that I was getting to is, like, I agree, the old monk fight is cool. I like it. But it's not just one-on-one in the Half-Light fight. And the people who, like, the majority of people who got summoned in when I did this fight were dedicated PvP people. They had their build specifically made for PvP.
It's towards the end of the final DLC.
Right.
The old monk is decently early.
Yeah.
Unless you're specifically going for it, you don't really have your set build yet.
Right.
In this, it's so far into it that of course you have all the time in the world to be high level with your perfect gear and perfect setup.
Right. And like PvP in Dark Souls it's almost like playing a different game from everything else. And so being forced to do a PvP fight on uneven terms, because again, it's not one-on-one, I don't like it. I don't like, I'm sure the story thing is cool. Like the reason why this is all happening is cool, but like, man,
I'm completely unaware of the lore around it because it means nothing to me.
Yeah. I just want to I want to get through this because I want to go fight Gael. But you got to deal with a bunch of like dedicated PvP people who are just like setting up. I feel like they just set up and do this all day. And that's their idea of fun. And like, if that's your idea of fun, that's cool, but I don't want to fight you. That's not why I'm playing this game. So yeah. D for me. I hate this. Next up, before we go fight Gael, we are going to talk about Dark Eater Midir. So where's Midir on your list?
I like Midir. There's only one thing keeping it from being one that I love. So Midir is an A.
Okay.
And the terrible HP bloat is the only thing keeping it from an S for me. Because otherwise, I really like this fight. It's another one that because I came to this stuff so late in the life cycle, I couldn't get summons to help. So it was on my own.
Okay.
And I learned it and I beat it. And that was so freaking cool. I still remember, it was a Saturday morning. I had gotten up, I had my coffee. I had been banging my head against Midir for a few days. And when I beat it, my son, was like, "You did it!" And he was all excited with me. And we were like, yeah. And dragons are his favorite thing in the world. Like his absolute favorite thing. He is anything you ask him about, he's like, I don't know, meh, okay. Unless it's dragons. He fucking loves dragons.
Hell yeah.
And so, like, his excitement when I finally beat him, my excitement when I finally beat him, I really enjoyed it. But it's one where, again, I don't really go back to it that often. One, because I hate playing through the Ring City. Mm-hmm. And two, the HP bloat is pretty freaking bad for Midir.
It's as bad as it gets, I think, with Midir, which, like, fine, he's a dragon. He should have more health than a dude, but that doesn't make it more fun. So I have it in B because I do think, like, I don't think this fight's unfair. I think it's a very learnable fight.
I think it's one of the better dragon fights they've done.
Yeah, until Elden Ring, it's definitely...
Until Elden Ring, yes.
It's, I think, other than... I think I like Sin from Dark Souls 2 more than this one, but Midir's a fine boss fight from like a move set and like learnability perspective. But again, like he just has so much fucking HP. You can learn Midir perfectly, but then you have to do it perfectly for like 15 minutes to kill him.
And he hits so hard.
Yeah.
Lower his damage a little bit, lower his health a little bit, and this would be an easy S for me. Easy S tier.
I think this was I think it was Gary on Bonfireside Chat that said like just sustained perfection is the only way to beat Midir.
Yeah.
And it's not a very interesting thing. So I'm like that just perfectly like summed up how I feel about Midir. Because I fought him for a while by myself, and I could feel myself like, okay, I understand this move now. When he jumps up in the air and shoots fire down below him, I know how to dodge that. But am I going to dodge it every time? Like every time over the course of 15 minutes? Maybe not.
Might get tagged. Yeah. And then it's over.
So, yeah, not the most fun.
I also beat him with a poise break.
Oh, nice.
So like
that's a
he
great
fell
feeling.
to the ground, and I was using that great club that I love in DS3. Love that freaking great club. And I went up and I started doing the thing. And again, you know, my kid and I were both really excited, and both of us were kind of like, is it going to be enough? Is it going to finish him off, or is he going to stand up and kill me? And it was enough to finish him off, and it was just like, yes, this is so good.
That's how I beat Orphan of Kos. My first time was on a parry and a visceral. It's such a good feeling when you get a tough boss down like that.
And finish him like that. It is, yeah, it's awesome.
My first playthrough with Midir, I tried him by myself for about 15 or 20 tries, and then I was finally like, I don't know, maybe I could do this, but do I want to put in the time to do it? Not really.
Yeah.
So I summoned help, and the person I summoned just annihilated Midir by themselves, even with the extra HP. They destroy, and I just kind of like ran in and took some swings when I felt safe, but this person like aced Midir by themselves with the extra HP that they get.
Did they use lightning?
I don't remember. Maybe.
Okay. Because I know lightning is good against dragons in Dark Souls.
Lightning's good against dragons, but I think Midir is resistant to lightning because he's resistant to fucking everything.
Everything. No, I saw someone annihilate Nameless King by using the really high-end dark spells, because the dragon is weak to dark, and then he's weak to fire. But they were a pyro, and they used, dark for the dragon phase, and it was like one shot. They launched this huge dark blast, and the dragon was like dead. And I was like, oh my god, what is this? And then the same thing on Nameless King, just huge fire, and boom, half his health is gone. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, you would think that being the son of Gwyn would make him resistant to fire, but he's not, because on my playthrough, I was a pyromancer too, and I was shooting fireballs and doing a bunch of damage to him that way. So next up, we got 2 bosses left. So next is Slave Knight Gael, who is the last boss of the DLC. Mm-hmm. Where are you going to put Gael?
Gael is also at A for me. Okay. Again, I don't know if Gael would get to S tier, like I think Midir would for me. The HP bloat is again a problem.
It is.
3 phases again, right?
Yeah.
But I like the fight. It's a cool fight. Too many phases, too much health. I like the arena, which is cool as well. Yeah. The one time I beat Slave Knight Gael on my own without summons was totally, a quote-unquote meme build. Uh-huh. I had the Storyteller's Staff, which its weapon art is a poison cloud that's more powerful than any poison spell in the game.
Oh, right.
So I would poison him, and then I would put it on my back and two-hand my bleed-infused bandit knife. Because you can quick step, and quick stepping him is way easier than rolling. Mm-hmm. And quick step works even if you run out of FP. So that doesn't matter that you're burning through it. Uh-huh. And bleed works great against him. So I'd poison him and then just quick step and bleed the crap out of him. That's the only way I've beaten him on my own, is by just basically exploiting things that maybe shouldn't be as good as they are.
Yeah. Actually, I was going to mention that with Midir. That was the advice that everyone had given me because I was a pyromancer against Midir, was use that pestilent mist.
I've done that on him.
Yeah. Gael, on the other hand, Gael is S for me. He's going to be the only other S tier for me.
Okay.
With Lothric and Lorien. Every Dark Souls game has one boss that I just fucking love the process of learning their attacks.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's Artorias, it's Fume Knight, and in Bloodborne, it's Orphan of Kos. It's difficult enough that Orphan of Kos does take me like 20 tries to learn it, but I love the process of learning it. And Gael is that same way. So for Dark Souls 3, Gael is really good for that. I agree he has too much HP. It's a problem. Everything else about the fight, I think, is like, it's the ideal. This is the ideal boss experience for me personally. So Gael is S tier. I really, really loved it. I had so many times my first playthrough where I got him down to like, the next hit would kill him, but then he got me. And it was like this epic struggle. It took a long time to learn, like multiple days, but finally did get him down. Actually, I had to summon help to get him down. Never mind. I got frustrated. But I did enjoy the process. And like, I felt like, I did basically do it by myself, getting him down that far, that eventually I was like, you know what, let's just summon, let's get this over with. Let's do it. But I still love the process. Man, I was looking forward to going and fighting Gael again, because I'm a lot better at these games now than I was the first time I played Dark Souls 3. But the Ring City just fucking beat it out of me, like any desire to get back there. And it sucks. It sucks that going through the levels dissuaded me from going back to fight a boss that I actually really love fighting. And like I've said it before,
agree.
Fighting the bosses in these games are not why I play these games. It's not my favorite part of the games. So yeah, one that I actually was like really looking forward to, but just kind of gave that up because the rest of it wasn't very fun. That kind of sucks. But Gael rules, S tier for me.
Yeah, good fight.
Okay, and another one. We will see how you feel about this one. Adam and I complained a lot about the Soul of Cinder on the main episode. So where are you putting the Soul of Cinder on your list?
So when the first time I got to him, I didn't like him. I had a lot of trouble with him.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, I figured out and also looked up how to deal with his different stances and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And once I knew what to do, I actually like Soul of Cinder quite a bit. Soul of Cinder is an A for me.
Okay.
And if it actually connected to the story better and was more meaningful as a character rather than being an amalgamation of every lord before,
right.
It would be an S for me, I think. But it's so disconnected that it's kind of its own thing. And of course, a lot of people have said, like when Gwyn's theme comes in, I wasn't familiar enough with it to recognize that even happened. So that was that didn't mean anything to me. But otherwise, once I learned what to do for the different stances, I like this fight. It still can be a little hard. I don't always get it down within just a few tries. Sometimes it takes a while, but I like this fight.
It's so close to being a fun fight. The kind of like Champion Gundyr, the opportunities to get your turn are so small. I felt like in this fight that I just don't like it. And I have it down in C tier. And also, I'm also punishing this because I hate the story of the Soul of Cinder. I like the very basic idea, like where the idea started is kind of cool, that there is this, like you said, amalgamation of all the previous Lords of Cinder, and it has all the movesets of player characters and Gwyn and all of that. Cool idea. But then the way that they implemented it, where it has I feel like it has endless combos, and some of its phases are just, I can't figure
You
out
just
where
run
I'm
away.
supposed to hit them. Yeah, you just like,
Yeah.
especially, he has like a spear phase where I just like literally just ran away until it changed to something else.
Yeah, no, that does happen. And honestly, some of that stuff should bump it down for me.
Yeah.
Doesn't quite, but if you get the wrong sequence of what phases he goes to,
Mm-hmm.
I can't beat him. It totally depends on what sequences he goes through. There's a part, I think it's only in phase 1 where he's just doing one set of moves. You can bait out this big jumping distance attack that's really easy to roll dodge, and then you can get a few hits in. So you just keep baiting that out, not a big deal. But then when he goes to his switching between phases, the spear phase is a pain. The sword phase is not much better. The magic phase, if you get him to do that one a bunch, easy. You just run up close, stay behind him, and swing away, and it's easy to beat him. And sometimes he'll just keep doing that one over and over, and you're done.
Yeah. The time that I beat him, again, I was playing Pyromancer. Again, you would think he's resistant to fire. He's not. Fire does plenty of damage to him. So I would just kind of like keep my distance. When he turned into the spear phase, I would literally just run away until he changed to something else.
Yeah.
And then when he did the magic phase, I would just kind of like trade ranged magic attacks with him because I can dodge his attacks better than he can dodge mine. And then that last phase where he turns into Gwyn, basically, I hate that you can't fight him the same way you fight Gwyn. Like, you can't parry him the way you can parry Gwyn. If they had done that, where it's like, hey, remember how you beat the final boss of Dark Souls 1? Use that
Do
here.
it again.
That would have been cool. I would have enjoyed that, but you can't. And it's just like, oh, come the fuck on.
That would have been a better callback than just using the music.
Yeah. Use the music, but also let me use what I know about Gwyn and how you fight him.
That could have actually really bumped it up and made it more meaningful and made it a lot cooler.
Yeah. Letting you, like, because this is supposed to be the end of a journey that you've taken with this series. So letting you use what you know from the first game would have been cool. But like, just, again, like I said, the very basis of the idea is cool, but what it turned into, I really don't like. So C tier for me, again, C, because D tier is like bad and uninteresting bosses like Yorm and Half-Light. And this is not that bad, but I don't have fun fighting Soul of Cinder. So cool. That is the end of the bosses in Dark Souls 3. Before we say goodbye, let's kind of recap. So, Jake, what do you have in the S and A tier?
S and A, going from S's first, Nameless King, Lothric and Lorien, Sister Friede. A's, Dark Eater Madir, Deacons of the Deep, Demon Princes, Osiris, Slave Knight Gael, and Soul of Cinder.
Okay, and then what do you have in the D and F tier, or whatever you have at the bottom of your list?
So D is the lowest I have. So do you want me to do D and then C?
Oh, sure. Or just D. Like, what do you think
D.
are the bad ones?
D, Ancient Wyvern, Old Demon King, and Yorm.
Okay, cool. So for me, in the Bed of Chaos tier, I have the Ancient Wyvern. The D tier is Yorm, Champion Gravetender, and Great Wolf, and Half-Light. A tier is Wolnir, Dancer of the Boreal Valley, Dragon Slayer Armor, and the Nameless King. And S tier, Lothric and Lorien, and Slave Knight Gael. Only 2 S tiers in this game. Looking at the tier list, the bosses are fine for the most part. They're good. They're okay. Not very many that I think are bad, but not very many that I think are awesome. Like in contrast to the Bloodborne tier list, which has not been released as you and I are talking today, but sneak peek, there's a lot of good bosses in Bloodborne, I think.
Looking at my tier list, I realize it makes a perfect bell curve.
Okay.
I have 7 B, 6 A's and 6 C's, 3 S's and 3 D's.
Hell yeah.
So it perfectly mirrors itself.
Okay.
Which means that for the most part, it leans towards being better, has a few really good highlights, and then a few really bad disappointments.
Yeah, which is fine. And it, like, again, by me saying that there are a handful that I really love and a bunch that I think are pretty good or okay, and then a couple that I think suck, that is better than what most games can claim, right? You know?
A lot of people, even people that aren't big on Dark Souls 3, do say that it has a really solid setup of bosses.
Yeah.
A lot of people that aren't even DS3 kind of likers, like I am, I really like DS3, they do give it the bosses. They're like, it does have fun and good bosses.
And it'll be interesting when the time comes to do Elden Ring.
That boss tier list will be 5 hours long.
Exactly, because there are 200 bosses in that game. But yeah, I think the Dark Souls 1 bosses, I don't think a lot of them are super fun anymore. There's a lot that are good, but I don't think a lot of them are super fun. I think that Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne, Sekiro also, but then also continuing into Elden Ring, there are a lot of bosses that are really fun. So
Elden Ring has such good bosses, I think.
Yeah, it's we're going to talk about that in Elden Ring month when that comes. So cool. Jake, thank you so much. We are going to share our tier lists on the Instagram and Twitter page for Tales from the Backlog. But also, once again, if you would like to do your own tier list, look in the show notes. You will find the link to this tier list. You can do it yourself. And I encourage you to join the Tales from the Backlog Discord and share your tier list. Let's chat. If you disagree with us, or if you want to come in and talk about how either I was super right or Jake was super right, please do. I would love to have you come in.
Will probably be considered super wrong.
Well, the Souls games in particular bring about very strong opinions in all directions. Yes. So both of us are going to be super wrong in somebody's eyes. So,
yep.
Jake, thanks again for coming on the show, dude. Always a blast talking games with you. And again, super happy for you that you're broken out of the walking sim typecasting. You're a FromSoft guy. Yeah.
Well, no, I'm half and half at this point. Half walking sims, half From. Very opposite.
Exactly. Yeah. There's nothing in between. There's either no gameplay or there is FromSoft gameplay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, again, thanks for coming on the show. People out there listening, thank you for listening. And again, if you want to support the show, join the Discord, come chat, follow on social media. You'll find links for Instagram and Twitter down in the show notes. And if you have enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a rating and review. That's very helpful. And I will see you next time for the next game that comes out of the backlog.